It begins with a sudden radio crackle in the open Pacific sky. An Australian military pilot's calm voice breaks through the static, then panic. A Chinese jet has just cut dangerously close, releasing flares in its path. For a moment, the sky becomes a battlefield of tension. No shots are fired, but the message is unmistakable. The game of power above the South China Sea is turning deadly. For years, Australian pilots have patrolled these waters under international law, monitoring trade routes, enforcing maritime security, and working alongside allies. But lately, those missions have turned into high-risk encounters. Canberra now accuses Beijing of unsafe and unprofessional manoeuvres, warning that one mistake, one miscalculated turn, could ignite something far greater than a diplomatic crisis. The Australian Defence Force reports that a Royal Australian Navy helicopter operating over the Yellow Sea was recently forced to take evasive action after a Chinese fighter jet released flares just meters ahead. The flares, meant to distract missiles, became a weapon of intimidation. In another instance, an Australian P-8 surveillance aircraft was shadowed for hours by a Chinese jet, closing in so close that its radar systems were jammed. These are not isolated incidents. They are part of a growing pattern of military brinkmanship in the Indo-Pacific. Beijing insists it is defending its sovereignty, accusing foreign militaries of trespassing into what it calls its territory. But the international community sees something else. A rising China testing the limits of global tolerance, pushing the boundaries of international law and asserting dominance in contested airspace. For Australia, the stakes couldn't be higher. Its economy is deeply tied to China, yet its security depends on cooperation with the United States and its allies. Every flight, every encounter forces Canberra to navigate an impossible balance between economic survival and national defense. The story stretches far beyond the cockpit. At the heart of it lies a strategic chessboard that spans the Indo-Pacific, the most contested region on Earth. The South China Sea alone sees trillions of dollars in annual trade, its shipping lanes vital to global stability. China's artificial islands, radar stations, and airstrips have transformed the region into a web of military fortresses, each nation circling them. Australia, Japan, the Philippines, and the United States must decide how far to go to challenge Beijing's expanding reach. Inside Australia's defence command centres, analysts track these confrontations with growing concern. The data shows an unmistakable trend. The frequency of unsafe intercepts has doubled in the past 2 years. What once were routine patrols have become nerve-wracking tests of restraint. In military terms, it's called grey zone conflict. Aggression without open warfare, intimidation without bullets. And yet, every close pass, every radar lock, pushes the world closer to the edge. The political fallout is equally tense. Australian officials have demanded explanations through diplomatic channels, only to receive silence or defiance. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has vowed not to be intimidated, declaring that Australia will continue to operate wherever international law allows. But beneath the firm rhetoric lies unease. The question everyone fears to ask: what happens when one of these encounters goes wrong? Experts warn that a single mid-air collision, like the one that occurred between a US and Chinese jet in 2001, could spiral into crisis. Back then, it took weeks of negotiation to bring the crew home safely. Today, with relations far colder and the stakes far higher, the outcome could be far more catastrophic. The United States, Australia's closest ally, has stepped up joint patrols and freedom of navigation operations. Washington calls China's maneuvers dangerous and destabilizing, vowing to defend its allies and uphold open sea routes. Beijing, meanwhile, accuses the West of hypocrisy and provocation, arguing that it is merely protecting its backyard from foreign intrusion. Each side sees itself as the defender. Each side calls the other reckless. And somewhere between those claims, the sky above the Pacific grows more crowded, more hostile, more unpredictable. For ordinary Australians, the headlines feel distant until you consider how much rides on peace. From trade to technology, from jobs to fuel shipments, the nation's future depends on open seas and stable skies. Yet that stability now rests on razor-thin diplomacy and the split-second reflexes of pilots thousands of feet above the ocean. In the end, this isn't just about two planes in the sky. It's about two worldviews colliding. The open rules-based order that has governed global trade for decades, and China's vision of a regional dominance that answers only to itself. Australia finds itself caught between them, a middle power forced to stand its ground in a world growing more divided by the day. The last flare fades into the sea. The jet pulls away. For now, there is calm. But every encounter leaves a trace. A reminder that peace, in this new era of power politics, is no longer guaranteed. The next time a warning light flashes in a cockpit over the Pacific, it may not end with radio silence. It may end with history changing course in an instant.